Hi, I'm Catherine Lewis, and I'm the leader for this course in agriculture for science teachers. My background has been in science, and then as a science high school teacher, I've worked in ag, I've been a lecturer in multimedia, as well as an educational designer at universities. So I'm going to step you through the goals of what I think this course is about. It's the first lesson that we're going to do today starts out with the state of agriculture in schools and how the government's supporting the importance of providing agriculture in schools, as from a recent report that has revealed that primary school children still don't know where their food comes from. Then in lesson 3 and 4, we're going to get into the science and understand how that science, the science as well as the agriculture side of things, and look at the different enterprises. So we'll look at soils and crops and animal production and other different enterprises. Then in lesson 5, we're going to understand the technologies in agriculture. And it's not just about an app. I'm not sure how many farmers actually use the apps, but they're great fun to play with. Now, technology is really just the practical side of the application of science, and it involves using the tools and the machines and the materials and techniques and power sources to make people's lives easier and more productive. Then in lesson 6, we're going to explore what other schools are doing in their ag plot and with agriculture in their schools. And then if you are a school who does not provide agriculture, how you would go about implementing agriculture into your curriculum, as well as those that do have an ag plot will be sharing what they do in their ag plot and what it looks like. We'll also look at what other lighthouse schools are doing with agriculture, which is really quite amazing. So the current New South Wales agricultural technology syllabus, to me, is like silos. It's like teaching in silos. And I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this. However, agriculture really shouldn't be taught just independently. It should go across disciplines as set out by the Australian curriculum. If you refer to Scoodle, there are many, many resources being developed for the Australian curriculum, and they show which discipline that agriculture can fit into. So schools that are teaching agriculture in New South Wales, it could be quite surprising that there are only 250 secondary government schools delivering stage 4 and 5 agriculture. So that's 34% of government secondary schools. There's 4 government agriculture high schools, and there's approximately 50 independent schools that are, and Catholic schools that are delivering agriculture. So there's many challenges that agriculture and schools are facing. And this is explained by the agri-food at the FIFA conference, that there's an aging farming workforce with an average of 52 years, that there's better paying jobs, so young farmers will go off the land if they've been raised there, and they'll go to the cities and earn more money in the cities. And it might even be a more exciting life for them, who knows. That also, if a student wants to go into farming, they've got to buy a farm that's actually productive, which could be over $2 million just for initial investment. Many farmers are not qualified. Few of them have gone into higher education, and if they have, they say that 50% drop out. The dropout rate. There's pressures on the land with climate change, and there's a lot of opposition amongst farmers to foreign investment and ownership of Australian farmland. There's also many misconceptions and about Australian being the future food bowl of Asia. So agri-food, again, at this conference explained that the current world population is roughly 7 billion, and in 2050 there'll be 9 billion in Australia. So Australia currently has in the world, 9 billion in the world. Australia currently has a population of 23 million, which is about 0.3% of the world population, and is only feeding currently about 60 million people, but has the land and water resource to feed up to 200 million people, again, just 3% of the world population. So the Department of Education is currently reviewing the importance of having agriculture and training in all schools, and have put forth some recommendations. So the first recommendation is that there should be well-informed advice on careers and pathways. Now, they did set up a careers organization, but I think it's been taken over by Agri-Food. And also, the second is that agriculture and food should be an annual thing. They should have a agriculture and food week once a year, if not every week. I mean, and then recommendation 5 is that ag teaching should be in every school, years 7 and 8, so a stage 4 ag program in every school. So the problem is not all schools are set up. They might not have the land. You know, how do you teach ag without animals? So we're going to look at how some of these lighthouse schools get around these issues in lesson 6. So schools teaching agriculture in New South Wales is really the main point that I want to get across. The government, the federal government, schools, the department, everybody's saying agriculture needs to go into schools. So this is what the proposed model, and it's not that different from what the ag syllabus is now. But this is what it looks like. So there's a focus in K to 6. It's centered around science and technology, and if you've ever taught primary school, it's a very overcrowded curriculum, and to try and get everything the government says they have to teach is really quite difficult. But being primary school teachers, they're very clever, and they've embedded agriculture into the curriculum in very exciting ways, and some very successful operations such as Paddock to Plate and Stephanie Alexander Cooking School, which is sort of the Paddock to Plate concept. Being creative with recycling their water, having their own tanks, growing their veggie patches, having chooks, raising eggs, into chooks. And so the primary schools are doing quite well in this area. Then you get into the next concentric circle, which is tech mandatory 7A. And it's more about design, make, evaluate, and investigate. So I'm saying there should be the science integrating into tech mandatory, so that it's going across, and when they go to the science lesson, they go, we learned that in ag, and vice versa. And then it starts making sense, because some of the concepts are quite challenging for them. Okay, so the federal government is boosting student learning in agriculture. And Christopher Pine, last year there was a media release explaining that school students of all ages will now be able to learn more about Australia's important agriculture sector through the government's $2 million Agriculture and Education Initiative. So a lot of this money went into FIFA, which is Prime Zone, Agri-Food, their own programs, and they're very good to use. A lot of them are based on the Australian curriculum, but you can integrate them into the New South Wales curriculum. And here's some of the organisations that are developing very good resources. So we'll look at those later as well. Okay, so when we look at the Australian curriculum, which is in all states but New South Wales and Victoria, it goes under the general banner of technologies, and then it's design and technologies for agriculture. So it's then called food and fibre production. So New South Wales doesn't necessarily call it that because I think fibre gets confused with textiles and so forth. So if you go into Scoodle, you can enter it through your department portal, and if you're from a different school, you just call them up and they'll give you they'll log you in and they'll give you a password and a username. And so here's just a sample of how they're approaching. So this is the design and technology Australian curriculum, yet it's about agriculture, but it can also be used in science and geography. And you can click on this down here, this New South Wales curriculum, and it'll show you exactly what you're meeting, what outcomes you're meeting. Another program which is sitting side by side is STEM, and you've probably heard of STEM by now. So this is all about the science and trying to incorporate the science into inquiry learning, project-based learning, and then hopefully inspire them so that they're going to actually pursue a career in science or in ag. And here's an outreach program which is very successful, which is scientists and mathematicians in schools. And you can register your details at scientists in schools, and they'll go and find an expert for you that'll come and teach particular science lessons, and you're away. And it's a great partnership. So for your activity for this week, I thought just to get used to looking at these resources, if you go into Scoodle or go into Prime Zone, Agribusiness, Agri-Food, and just have a discussion on how you would use it, or talk about your school. What's your agriculture program look at? I've noticed some are from the country in this program, and I would expect they have very, very good ag programs. So it's about sharing ideas and where you're going to go with this. Okay, thank you.